Hey everybody, welcome back. We are just cruising right along. So I wanted to thank you for your fantastic answers. I know you were watching the videos and that makes me feel really good. So it's only going to benefit you and help things move a lot smoother as we get into an actual practice starting next week. So very quickly, just to review, yoga means to yoke or unite, right? So what we've learned here recently is there are 8 limbs to yoga and the movement is only one of them. But we now know that those 8 things come together, those 8 limbs connect together to form this practice of yoga. So when we first learn or talk about yoga, we just assume or we just think it's like that warrior 2 or a triangle pose or tree pose, but those are only one tiny little aspect of what the yoga actually is. So the other things that we have already practiced last week into this week are mindfulness / meditation and pranayama, which is your breath work, and the postures, the asanas. So 3 out of 8. That means you've only got 5 more things to learn. However, in those 5 things, we've got the yamas and the niyamas, and there's 5 yamas and there's 5 niyamas. And we've only gone over 1 yama, but today we're gonna go into the next 2. So the yamas, I did ask on the portal that you answered this question, so I'm going to give you the answer right now. Here it is. Another name for the yamas are the ethical disciplines of yoga, or I will also take the don'ts or the don't actions of the outer world. When we talk in yoga about the internal world versus the external world, internal means spirituality, the way that we kind of think about ourselves, who we are as a human being, the kind of person that we are. That's the internal side of things. The external is what people see, is how we behave in the world. So we are really talking about those internal things that we have to determine for ourselves, that sometimes people will never ever know about us or see about us, but it's in us, and that is the thing that has to drive us to keep being good, right? So we talked yesterday about ahimsa, meaning non-violence, and we dug a little bit into that, as far as how that affects our self-talk, how we maybe eat. If you're somebody that struggles eating animals, totally fine. I struggle sometimes myself. But ahimsa, non-violence, and also being mindful of how we talk to ourselves that's the part that I really want you guys to understand and start to adopt as yourself. The next 2, the first one is satya, okay, and that stands for truthfulness. And I'll spell that for you. So satya is S-A-T-Y-A. I will accept that answer, or truthfulness. So either of those 2. And then just to kind of dig into that a little bit, you might not consider yourself to be somebody that doesn't lie, or you might consider yourself somebody that, does lie. I don't know where you fall in that, but maybe you might want to think a little bit differently about that. I'm going to read something for you. This is from Patanjali. He was a famous yoga sage. He wrote the Yoga Sutras. So he's very knowledgeable. We take a lot of our yoga from him. And he says, in both word and thought, truthfulness extends beyond simply speaking the truth in the outer world, but seeking and cultivating a high awareness of the inner truth. This truthfulness, cleanses the body, mind, heart, and spirit. So this is really more about who you are internally, being honest with yourself. And I'll just share a really brief story because I don't want to keep you guys on here too long. I want to get into these poses. You guys know I do bodybuilding. I compete bodybuilding, and I had a coach a few years ago that was looking at my food journal. And instead of me putting everything into that journal that I was actually eating, I was like lying. I didn't want him to see that I was eating Reese cups every night or whatever it was I was dealing with at the time. So fast forward about a year later, I was speaking to a new bodybuilding coach, and that came up. And, she pointed out to me that I wasn't lying to the other coach. I was lying to myself. I wasn't being truthful to myself. So that could come out in a different way for you. That might be, maybe, I got a good one. So my son just told me about some app that basically gives you the math answers. So he's using that to, show his work because that's what he has to do. That's not truthfulness. So we're having conversations about that. But he, believes that he's doing the right thing. and we have to decide what the right thing actually is. And for us, in my household, that is not the right thing. That is not being truthful. He's not learning anything, right? So that is a little bit about Satya. The third one is Asteya, A-S-T-E-Y-A, and that stands for non-stealing. And this one's always a fun one. I really like to talk about this in person, but so non-stealing, I'm going to read this out of Patanjali again, and he just says that a yogi or a human must not take anything that is not his. The sutras, which is the book that he wrote, makes no distinction between the physical and the mental realm. In order to be free from suffering, the person must not covet what another has. Violating someone's trust is also considered an act of stealing, and a yogi or a person can deny himself by denying the opportunity to realize his true nature. We're not really going to dig into that, it's a little too deep for today. But the way that I always think about this non-stealing, in a way that makes sense for me, is for those of you that have jobs, are you on your phone while you're at your job? Probably yes. I'm not saying that I don't, right? I'm being honest. This is me being 100% honest. However, when you are at work, you're getting paid to do a job, whether it's busy or slow, you are supposed to be working for your boss. So being on your phone is an act of stealing. You're getting paid to be on your phone, right? You're not getting paid to be on your phone. That's not what he hired you for. Your boss hired you to do the job that you're getting paid for, not be on our phones. So before we start like really digging into that and beating ourselves up or thinking that that's a bunch of bull, I just want you to think about that for a minute. And I will tell you, I'll be the first to say that I've worked in the restaurant business almost my whole life. And there are lots of moments where it's slow, it's quiet, and there's nothing really to do, right? There's nothing to do except be on my phone to kind of kill the time. What I would say to that is, you know, I could be doing other things. I could be cleaning, I could be answering phones, whatever. I could be doing something more productive besides diddling on my phone the whole time I'm supposed to be actually working. So am I saying stop it? No, I'm not. But I am telling you to just kind of think about it the next time you find yourself in a situation like that. He also, Patanjali had said something about coveting what somebody else had. That's very similar to the 10 Commandments, right? Thou shalt not covet what thy neighbor has. And so just by wanting what somebody else has, we kind of take on their whole life. And that is really an interesting way to look at it. But the way I relate it to yoga is when you're in a yoga class with experienced yogis, and somebody is doing the most perfect upward facing dog, and then they're just going right into all these other poses and they look beautiful, and you're just like, I wish I could do that. Why doesn't my body do that? Well, you are automatically assuming that that person has their whole life together. And when we covet their yoga poses, does that also mean that we want to take on all the other things that that person may be struggling with at home or on their own? So, you know, it's a little bit of one of those things where you kind of have to think about it. But just remember that we only see a portion of things, right? Unless it's our own life, we don't know what the other person has been through. We don't know what the other person has going on at that time. And this can be a negative or a positive. So just being kind and compassionate and being grateful for what you've been blessed with. And that is one really important thing that I just want to drive home to you guys today. So just being really grateful that we have these bodies that move, whether we want to move them or not is a different story, but we have the ability to take care of ourselves, and we should. So, okay, your three, there's actually 3 questions on the portal, so just real quickly, I'm going to give you the answers again. Yamas, the other word or the other phrase to call them is the ethical disciplines of yoga, or I will also accept the don'ts or don't actions of the outer world. Ahimsa we talked about yesterday. The 2 new yamas you've learned today are Satya, truthfulness, either of those words are acceptable, and Asteya, non-stealing. And then out of those 3 things that you've learned about, I want you to describe or tell me which one of those you either don't agree with at all, or which one you kind of adopted as your own truth and you feel like you're already living or you would like to live, okay? All right, so let's get into some of the poses. We're just gonna get up and get going. So we've gone over all the basic foundational postures for the most part. So we now know Tadasana is our mountain pose. All of our standing postures kind of come from this base, this foundation. So we did a low lunge yesterday. We're going into high lunge today. I'm just going to start by turning on the side. So step to the top of your mat, Separate your feet about hips distance. Now, remember, in Tadasana, your big toes need to be touching and your heels should be about 6 inches apart. But for where we're headed today, I want you to separate your feet about 6 inches between your big toes, all right? Hands are gonna come to your hips, and you're gonna step your left foot to the back of your mat, okay? Just do your best lunge position. Now, immediately you wanna make sure that your feet are separated, that hips distance, so when you step that foot back, it should have been in a straight line. You do not wanna be on a tightrope. This is like a skateboard, a surfboard, or a tightrope. So you do not want your back foot behind, directly in line with that front one. It needs to be out to the side, don't fall, so that you have space for your hips, your pelvis. Okay, if you don't have that foot out to the side, this hip is gonna be kind of like turned a little bit, and over time, if you're doing that constantly, it's gonna cause an injury in the hip or the low back. So, feet are hips distance, that back leg is fully extended back behind you, and the front knee is stacked directly above your ankle. That is something that you're gonna hear over and over and over again. Okay, hands to the hips, bring the back foot in. We will even it out by stepping the other foot to the rear. So go ahead and step that other leg back. Make sure that you are on that kind of a railroad track. So your left foot would be on the left side of the railroad tracks and your right foot would be on the right. Hands on the hips, pull your left hip back. That will bring your right hip forward. So you guys do not have to turn, by the way. But if you pull your left hip back, this one automatically turns. So just think about everything facing forward. Good? All right, before we come out of it though, I want you to bend your back knee to 90 degrees. Okay, very rarely do I do it this way, but occasionally I will for a certain reason. But for the most part, you're gonna have your back leg straight. Cool? Okay, go ahead and step the back foot in. Give it a little bit of a shake. We're gonna go into our Warrior One. I'm gonna show you both from the side view and the front view. Warrior One, come at it the same way you came from lunge. Step your left foot as far back as you can, and then hands are gonna be on your hips again. What you'll do is you'll put your left heel fully on the floor, and you can see that my toes are turned out. From where I am standing, it's at 2 o'clock, 1 or 2 o'clock if you're looking at the hands on a clock. Both of your hips still face forward. You are pressing hard into your back pinky toe. I call that your steering wheel. So if you push into your left pinky toe, that should bring your right hip forward. Your chest is stacked above your hips, and everything should feel good. Warrior One is a tough pose, I think. We hold it a little bit longer. There's 3 warriors. This is the first one, the one I dislike the most, okay? Pick up your back heel. Step that back foot to the front of the mat, hands back on your hips, and lunge your opposite leg back. So same thing, make a little room. You might want to take your feet a little wider than what they are. Then place your back heel all the way on the floor. That includes your left pinky toe. And then you can lift your arms up. Think about pressing your front shin bone a little bit forward. And I mean, I feel a huge stretch down my back calf. All right, pick up the back heel and we will step forward. Go ahead and give it a little shake. All right, so high lunge, Warrior One. By the way, the other word for warrior in yoga is Virabhadrasana. So Virabhadrasana 1 is that one that we just did. Now we're gonna go into Warrior 2. This is the one I love. So step to the top of your mat, turn your right toes to 12 o'clock, and then you're gonna bring your back left foot directly center of that right heel. So this is heel to arch. This is your arch, right? The middle part of your foot, alignment. Now, when you step your left foot back, you want to step it so far back your right knee stacks above that heel, and the arms are going to come out straight. All right, so this is Virabhadrasana 2. And in this pose, a couple of things typically happen. One, I always see this, okay, or kind of like lazy arms. So pull your chest up so that it stacks above your hips. The other thing that I see quite a bit is that knee kind of turning in. So I'm going to turn the other way so you can see me too. So you've got to push your inner thigh out. So when you look down at your front toes, you should be able to see your big toe. Go ahead and straighten that right knee for just a moment. All you're going to do is tick-tock your feet to the other direction. Automatically, you should have your left heel dissecting the arch of that back right foot. Go ahead and spread your arms and bend your front knee. Back foot is turned in a little bit more like 1 or 11 o'clock, but you want to keep the heel on the ground. Belly strong, chest proud, drop down. Can you see your left big toe? The answer should be yes, and if it's not, Push your knee out toward your pinky toe so you can. We're gonna move right into our next pose. It's extended side angle. So you're gonna reach across that left thigh, lay your elbow on the leg, and sweep your arm over your head. So you can see here in this pose, I've got one line from my middle fingers up here to my hip through my heel, all the way down. It's one straight line. My hip's not here, I'm not doing this. It's a pretty strong pose. You're opening your heart by pressing your elbow into your thigh. This is the modification that we are going to do for now. The second level would be to have your hand on a blocker on the ground, but we're not quite there yet. So we're just going to hang here for another breath. Use your right arm to lift you up and out of the pose. Straighten that front leg, tick-tock your toes, and we'll do it one more time on the other side. So set it up for Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. Okay, and then extend all the way over that right thigh, elbow to the leg. Sweep your left arm next to your ear. One other thing that you need to make sure is happening is you're not letting your ear come close to your shoulder. So push the forearm down, lift your ear up away from that shoulder itself. And then you can kind of push your forearm into your leg and open your chest a little bit more. Okay? 2 more breaths. And again, as if you had a rope from the sky, reach up, pull yourself up and out of it. Go ahead and straighten the legs. You can walk your feet in together and then just go ahead, come on down to the ground. One more pose. Okay. Bridge pose. I think we kind of set this up last week if you were with me on campus. We'll just talk a little bit about it tonight or today, and you can be done. All right, so your bridge pose. Your feet are going to be under your knees, ankles under your knees. Now, back in the olden days, we used to tell people to reach down, and if they had to reach their ankles. But some people have short arms. My arms are short. I'm not going to be able to touch my feet, but they are stacked under my knees. So that's what really is important. So I know you're not always going to have a camera to see if your knees are stacked perfectly, but just do your best. You just want to make sure you're not out here. I used to have a lady that would actually grab her feet and pull her heel in to her glute. So bad. So bad on your knees. So keep them away from the booty, but just make sure your ankles are directly under the knees. And then we're going to learn robot arms today. So this is one of the things I like to do. So you're going to bend your elbows, place your backs of the triceps on the ground. You got blades for arms. Push into the triceps, lift your hips. Now when you get your hips off, your chest automatically moves back towards your chin. We need to keep this airway open for bridge pose. Other poses, not so much, but for this one specifically, chest lifts up, but chin moves away from your chest, right? You should be able to swallow, you should be able to breathe. Okay. You're going to slowly, first push into your arms a little bit more, see if you can lift your hips a little higher. Try not to squeeze your glutes too tightly. But on your next outward breath, go ahead and release your shoulders and then start to come down one vertebrae at a time. Good. Let your back release to the ground. Let your hands go long. We're going to do it one more time. Okay, find your feet. Push into the balls of your feet and the heels, and when you're ready, you're going to go ahead and start to lift. There will be a spot where you think this is it. This is all I got to do, and that's when we bring those robot arms into play. So you're going to press into the triceps, lift your hips a little higher so you use your arms for bridge pose, chin away from the chest, and just breathe. You can practice your Ujjayi breath. If you remember what that is, that's the ocean or Darth Vader breathing that we learned last week if you were with me on campus. Go ahead and slowly come on down one vertebrae at a time. I'm going to give you a brief Shavasana today. Take it or leave it. It is optional. So from your bridge, you are welcome to stay here, right? You can bring your inner thighs together, knees a little bit apart, or you can go full-on corpse pose and just lengthen your legs straight out. Once you're in the position that you've decided you want to be in, just close the eyes and start to come back to your breath. Bring your right hand to your heart and your left hand to the lower belly, right where your belly button is. And we're going to do our Dirga breathing. This is a 3-part breath. So all you're going to do is inhale into the belly, into the chest, into the throat, pause, and then exhale, throat, chest, and belly. Let's do that again. Inhale, belly, chest, throat, and then breathe it out, throat, chest, belly. One more time. Inhale, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 1, 2, feel of having your hands on your heart or your belly or both, you can leave them there. Otherwise, take the arms out wide into a T shape. Let your body be really relaxed. Like let your toes turn out if that feels good. You can even separate your legs a little bit wider, but let your muscles stop working for once. Allow the muscles of your face to melt. Think about the muscles in your neck and your throat. Soften the shoulders. Adjust if you need to adjust. Let your belly be soft. Let your legs relax. So we'll stay here about 1 minute and just focus on your breath. So keep your eyes closed. Stay inside the internal world of your own mind and your physical body. And then keeping eyes closed, just wiggle your fingers and then move your toes. For today, you're just going to bend your knees and plant each foot flat on the floor just like you did for bridge pose. Listen up closely. I'm going to offer you a couple options. If you are still in class, you have work that you need to do, roll off to your left. If you've decided to do this a little later in the day and you're winding down, you'll roll to your right. Whatever side you choose, you're going to use the bottom arm to support your head. You'll come into the fetal position. We'll stay here just a couple breaths, but really focus on what's changed. How did you feel before you stepped onto the mat? Or how did you feel this morning when you got out of bed? And how do you feel right now? With your eyes closed, press into the free hand. We'll return to Sukhasana, our easy seat, crisscross applesauce, and draw the hands to prayer. Take a nice big breath in, and then as you exhale, bow your forehead to your fingertips. Thank you all so much for cooperating and for getting on your mat today. Have a beautiful day. Namaste. All right, you guys, don't forget to give me your answers by midnight tonight. I look forward to hearing from you, and I can't wait until we actually start doing the yoga next week. So, have any questions, comments, or concerns, hit me up, let me know.